Hi there. I'm Tina Beier, a writer at postapocalypmedia.com. And today I'm ecstatic to be doing an interview with Karie Lee, the phenomenal runner-up of season 9 of Alone. Karie Lee is a primitive wilderness skills instructor, an herbalist, and an energy medicine practitioner. She comes from a long line of pioneers that have homesteaded in the Pacific Northwest. She has lived completely off-grid for over 20 years in a yurt, not connected to anything. She collects rainwater, firewood, has a small solar system, a garden, and she forages and hunts for most of her food, which is awesome. Karie Lee, before we start, thank you for agreeing to do this interview with me. I'm so excited because you're like a celebrity to me. For those who don't know, I write most of the recaps and reviews about Alone on Post Apocalyptic Media, and I love seeing women on Alone doing survival stuff. It's great that girls today can have women role models in this lifestyle, activity, and field. So again, thank you for this interview, and let's get started.
Sounds great.
So just going to jump right in. Did you do any sort of extra training before going on Alone? And like, how much time was there between finding out you were a contestant and being dropped off in the wilderness?
Well, you could say, well, first of all, I just want to say thank you for having me on the show. This is great and nice to meet you. You could say I've been training for the majority of my life, like 50 years, because ever since I was 8 years old, I wanted to go out into the wilderness with nothing but my knife and survive, just like that guy did, that boy on my side of the mountain. I read that book when I was 8 and I just like, that's what I want to do. So yeah, ever since then, I've been glomming onto any kind of information I could find. And it wasn't until my adult life that I got hooked in and found out about the primitive skills gathering circle. And that's where I really started diving in to learning a lot of really cool stuff about the wilderness and how to live off the land. And you could say too, when I was a kid, my parents were back to the landers in the 70s. So I don't know, we just did a lot of camping and backpacking and so just was kind of growing up that way. How much time? Let's see. We found out the first week of July a year ago who was going to be on the show. And so that gave us like 2 months to get all of our gear to do whatever conditioning training we wanted to do with our bodies, to
gain weight, basically.
That was a strategy. Ends, make sure the rent's paid, all that stuff, to prepare yourself to be gone on a long trip. You have to slate off 6 months of your life and make sure all those loose ends are tied up before you go. So it doesn't give you a whole lot of time to prepare at that time. It's like, you hope you can do some research on the location. We found out about our location of Labrador, I think 3 weeks ahead of time, and our exact location maybe 10 days. So we did not get a lot of time.
Oh, wow.
To do a lot of research. And by that time, you're more worried about, when's your flight and packing your bags. And
I guess that makes sense to kind of make sure that people can't kind of visit ahead of time and like scope things out or practice, I guess.
Oh, yeah. When we found out that we were going to Big River, I instantly Googled it and I found the lodge. I was like, this must be where we're going, even though they didn't. This must be where we're going. And they had all this information about fly fishing and flies to use. And I copied all that information, and within probably 3 or 4 days, the website, all of that was taken down. I got it.
That's awesome. That's amazing.
Yeah, you do what you can. And I guess that's why we get hired to go, is because we're supposed to already know all this, right?
Yeah, for sure. I would love to do that. I have this very embarrassing problem, which is called arachnophobia. And it's funny because I don't care about other bugs at all. I don't care about dirt and hunting and stuff like that. There's hunters in my family, but I'm just like, a spider gets near me and I lose it. And I'm just like, I don't know. I'm trying to work on it. I'm trying to get closer to them and stuff, but it is a goal of mine to one day do something like, not like that, but do more like survival stuff as opposed to just typical camping. So yeah. Anyway, you're probably like, oh my God. Given you already live
no, not at all.
Given you already live off the grid, how much more difficult was Labrador versus like your everyday life living off the grid? I'm assuming it was way harder, but what made it harder?
Well, not having food stored away is definitely harder because when you live off grid, you do hunting in the fall and you're collecting your greens or your wild edibles, berries in the summer. And, I do also have a garden. So, and you can store it in the freezer so you have food year round.
Right.
So being out there, that's definitely the hardest part is procuring your food. It wasn't a whole lot different. I was asked like, wow, you're spending so much energy. Like, because I dug for a week in that clay to build my shelter.
Wow.
I mean,
It doesn't seem like that on the show.
No, they actually showed me moving in on day 15. I started digging on day 15 and I moved in on day 21.
Oh, so wow. Okay.
7 days. They made it look like, boom, I got it in one day. No,
it's like one afternoon.
And, I was asked like, God, you're burning so many calories and doing all this stuff. And, you're working harder than you would be at home. And I'm like, well, not really. If I was at home, I'd be digging in the garden. I'd be putting it to bed. I'd be getting my firewood for winter, getting my shelter ready, my yurt ready for winter, and procuring my food. And so I'm basically doing the same things, but just on a smaller scale.
Oh, I see.
It really wasn't a whole lot different. In fact, it was simpler because I didn't have to use a chainsaw. I actually didn't cut any of my firewood. I was able to break off all those branches, and that's all I wanted. I just wanted to have a stick fire, something super easy. I was not going to be spending hours on cutting firewood. That's a huge waste of calories.
Oh yeah, I didn't even think about that, about like chopping down wood. I mean, you see them doing it, but it takes forever. I mean, whenever I go to my friend's cabin, we have to chop down wood. It takes 1,000 years to get like a few pieces. So I didn't even consider that. That's great that you're able to do that.
You see a lot of the guys cutting, big logs and cutting them and chopping them, and no, just need enough heat to warm up and boil my water and take the chill off in my shelter, and that's all you need, really.
Yeah. So did you have a consistent fire going, or was it just like when you needed it?
No, just when you need it. Unfortunately, I was in a wildfire burn, but I think this was true for most of us. It's mostly black spruce and white spruce up there, and some balsam fir. But the spruce is a really hard wood. I couldn't split it. I tried. It was really hard. It's really hard to cut through with a saw. It's really hard to chop with an axe. And I spent 4 hours chopping a log about, 8 inches, maybe a foot. Because I was going to make a big, huge burn bowl. It took me like 4 hours, and I gave up. So this isn't worth it.
Wow. I guess that's the thing. You have to readjust.
Yeah, right. But that wood also has really low BTUs. So it didn't put out a lot of heat. And I had to stoke it every 10, 15 minutes or it would go out, especially because I'm using small wood. And even the coals wouldn't last very long, maybe an hour. So it wasn't like normally I would bury my coals in the ashes, and at night it would be enough coals to keep your fire going. That was not the case. You had to constantly keep after it, or
I never considered that, like the different types of burn rates of
wood. It makes a huge difference. And then there was the fir, but the fir sent off sparks. It was really sparkly.
Yeah, kind of dangerous.
So it burned out a little more heat, but then you're taking the chance that you might burn your sleeping bag, or
right.
Could be detrimental for sure. So yeah, that was unfortunate. It was really hard to find good hot burning firewood that would just last forever.
That's so interesting. I'm going to have to pay attention to that now and in future seasons and be like, what kind of wood are they using?
Yeah, Adam had the same problem. We were both in agreement. Like, yeah, that wood sucked. It
was hard. Yeah. So you already talked. Oh, sorry. You already talked about growing up in the wilderness. So, and you said that it was something that you kind of grew into as you got older. So do you plan on living out here forever?
Oh yeah. So I guess I could clarify. When I grew up, I went to college and I did the whole career thing, and after about 5 or 8 years, I'm like, what the hell am I doing? I quit all of that corporate world stuff and I moved to Sandpoint, Idaho.
Oh,
So that I could be closer to nature and up in the mountains where I feel the most comfortable, and just kind of started a whole new life here. And I think in 2006, I had the opportunity to, one of those life challenges, the opportunity to start my life all over. So I asked myself, like, well, what do I want this to look like? And I already had my yurt. So I was moving my yurt. I put it up and I decided that it was going to be my shelter. It was a large tent,
yeah.
be glamping a little bit. But I was incorporating the primitive skills as much as possible into my lifestyle, but still be a part of the modern world. And so I just had that chance to really I really went back to my childhood is really what I fashioned it after. And because I didn't have any responsibility, no kids, and I could do whatever I wanted. So I did.
That's awesome. That's such an awesome story. I'm just like, oh, but I have 2 kids. So I have to think about them. I've often, fantasized about running away and living in the desert.
Yeah. I just kind of decided to make it happen.
Take my kids with me.
Do it.
Exactly. Let's see. You talked about this a bit in the show, but how, do you maintain such a positive attitude throughout the whole season? You were just such a joy to watch because you were just so positive. And I just wonder how you managed to do that. I want to steal some of that from my own life.
Yeah. That was, when I watched them play it back, I was kind of surprised, like someone's moaning, groaning, and they should be kids running. I knew that because I'm an energy medicine practitioner. And so I work with clients all the time. And when you're working with negative emotions, your body's energy gets really weak. So I knew that if I could stay in a positive place, even if it's miserable, it's not like I didn't struggle. It's not like it was hard. It was hard. But having a positive attitude about it and singing the songs would put me in a happy place. I'd wake up, some mornings I'd wake up and like, oh, I really don't even want to get out of bed. I'm tired, that moany, groany, curmudgeon place.
Yeah.
And so I would just start singing that Cree morning song. Wani Shka is a morning song. It's really upbeat. And I'd get that in my mind and my body. And just it's like putting on if you have to clean the house, what are you going to do? You're going to put on your favorite jammin' tunes, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
That's kind of what I was doing. Putting on the jammin' tunes. And then I would turn on the camera. Say, good morning.
Yeah. Okay. That makes sense. Yeah. Get yourself prepared.
But I was also doing some energy routines and really working with the meridians in my body to keep my vitality up, my kidneys in a good, you got to keep your kidney energy up. And so that was really helpful. That helped boost my immune system. Just the more joy you can have, the more stronger your whole body's going to be.
Is it kind of like
you can see people
endorphins and stuff help you along? Is it like that, or is it okay?
Yeah, all the hormones, all of it, and you can see people when they're experiencing negative emotions or depression or whatever, their whole body slumps,
Yeah.
You can just see it. They're weak. Their energy is just drained. But then when someone's just happy, everything gets boosted up and everything else follows. So that's what I was working on is in Chinese medicine, they call it extraneous meridians or the radiant circuits. So I was working with that because if you can stay happy and be in this happy place, your radiant circuits are turned on. And when your radiant circuits are turned on, that's when spontaneous healing can happen. For people who have illnesses and
that's really interesting. I've heard of that stuff, but I haven't really done a lot of reading into it. Now I'm really gonna start looking that stuff up, right? Especially seeing the effect it had on you in real life in the show. So
yeah, it's huge. It's huge. And I'll have to just point out the very end on the last episode, there's a moment where you see me tapping my chest. I'm like, don't cry, don't cry.
Mhm.
And this was critical. And the reason why I did that is because my blood pressure was so low. They didn't really show this. I was super dizzy.
Oh, no.
And I was hiking around this island of trees to see if tracking a snowshoe hare.
Mhm.
But I had to stop every 5 to 10 steps.
Oh,
I
wow.
was so dizzy, and I had my walking stick, and but I kept going, kind of stupid. I kept going, and I got to the furthest point away from my shelter and realized that, wow, I'm kind of far from my shelter and the sun's going down, and I should not be this far away. Like, this is not good. I'm not in a good place. And I even walked out of my way just to get up into the sunshine. But
Mhm.
right before I did that, that's when I was like, in a way, I was kind of realizing how poorly my health was.
Mm.
And I was like, don't cry, don't cry.
Oh.
Because that would lower my energy level that my body needed to get home. And if I allowed myself to cry, that might take just that little bit of energy that I needed to actually make it.
Okay.
So that's what that was about. It was critical, but that's what that was about. I was like,
I thought you were just like emotional. But no, there was an actual like, oh, that's so fascinating.
Keep it together, girl.
Yeah.
Keep it together. Get into the sun and slowly make way back to camp. And I did.
Yeah.
But that's how critical, when you're that weak, that little bit of energy boost is going to make or break you. You know?
That's good to know. I mean, I'm going to keep note of that if I'm ever in a situation like that. We'll see.
Or even
maybe.
Anytime you have an illness or anytime, really.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So, have you done any wilderness survival living in other countries other than like the US and then the time in Labrador? And is that something you would do on vacation, like go to a place and survive in the different climate? Or would you more likely be like, I'm going to go to Jamaica and lie on the beach?
I would love to go to Jamaica and lie on the beach.
Me too.
Sometimes I go to Costa Rica and lay on the beach. But,
oh, nice.
But on survival courses or expeditions, I went to Alaska. That's not a different country, but it is definitely a different place for sure. Very, very wild. I live in North Idaho, and that seems to be wild, but it's actually very tame compared to Alaska. But I did a 3-month kayak trip. Me and my partner at the time built a kayak, and we traveled all over the Inside Passage for 500 miles, 3 months.
Oh, that's so cool.
And foraged for food. We lived off the land as much as we possibly could, which was pretty easy because we had salmon and we had all kinds of food.
Yeah.
Time. And that was a very special trip. Otherwise, besides Canada, I really have not been in another country doing a wilderness expedition. I have traveled in Central America, but not.
Yeah.
That was a different intention.
Yeah. Oh, that's cool. I was just curious about whether you've done it in other places.
Yeah.
There's no kind of alone shows for other places.
Right. I think, and to answer your question, to me, going on those wilderness expeditions are kind of vacations. Although, yeah, I would definitely wouldn't mind going to the beach and hanging out, but I wouldn't be at a resort. I would probably be in like a little cabin or something that you could rent out, or a bungalow, more like a bungalow, or camping out on the beach. That's more
I
my
prefer
style.
doing that too. Resorts are nice for some reasons, but like I prefer to kind of be off the resort and like in the environment, and yeah.
Yeah, I want to be out in nature as much as I can. Just the way.
Yeah. So here's a weird question. So this is a question that's always interested me, particularly about the show. And actually a recent episode of Alone Frozen from last week, one of the contestants, Callie, actually mentioned this, but I'm going to ask it anyway. So I know there's a first aid kit provided, but are women contestants on the show provided with menstrual pads and stuff, or do you have to do it medieval style?
Yeah.
I always wondered.
No.
Well, that's good.
Yeah, you're allowed to take feminine hygiene and as long as you don't repurpose it for anything else. You can't take all your pads and make a pillow,
make a tent.
Go start a fire with it.
That makes sense. I figured that, but I was just like, I'm curious. What if they're like, no, you can't?
No, you're just not allowed to repurpose it.
That makes sense.
You just keep it away and you take care of yourself.
I always think about that in movies and books and stuff set in like the medieval times, and they don't mention it. I'm like, what are they doing about that? Anyway, what was your favorite experience while in Labrador?
While what?
While in Labrador on the show. Like, did you have a favorite moment or a thing you saw?
The snowball fight.
That was so fun.
That was me against myself, but I think I won.
I laughed so hard at that. I was like, that is something. I'm like, that's something I would do. My husband was like, yeah, that's definitely something you would do.
Yeah, I, to be honest, so we had that 3-day snowstorm and getting the muskrat too. That was definitely a highlight.
That was so funny.
We had a 3-day snowstorm, and during the snowstorm, I had that personal experience I wanted. I wanted to be in my shelter and experience, a nasty storm outside or a blizzard, and it might be miserable, it might be great, but I wanted to have that experience of harshness and hoping to be thriving in my shelter and have a plate of food to boot. So the night before that storm came in, which I predicted that storm a month ahead of time, and it came in exactly when I predicted it.
Wow.
Yeah. I think I scared production. How did she know? Yeah. But I got that squirrel, and I actually saved it because I didn't eat it that night. I saved it because I knew that storm was coming and I wanted to have it. And so during that storm, I kind of decided I could leave now and be pretty satisfied with what I've done out here. So I was thinking about tapping. And so I was kind of eating up the rest of my food because I still had my food ration. And so when I came out that sunny day and saw that snow, I was like, oh my God, this is overwhelming. And I even had that thought of maybe I'm done. And then I was like, well, it snows in Idaho. We get way more snow than this. I can deal with it.
Yeah.
But I had also had that thought. I was like, wonder how many people are going to tap today.
Right.
And
yeah.
Actually, Timogen tapped.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
He tapped that day that I was having the snowball fight with myself. I, at that point, was like, I'm just going to have fun. I just want to be here, live moment to moment, and maybe craft, finish up my food. I'll tap out in a few days, and I'm just going to. And that's all I did that day. I filmed that snowball fight with myself, and then took me 2.5 hours, and I was exhausted. I went back in my shelter and boiled some water and went to bed.
That sounds nice. Nice and kind of relaxing.
It was relaxing but exhausting at the same time.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah, and the person dressed in black, my coat and the winter gear, I was actually imagining that Adam was my neighbor. I had a premonition that he was below me.
Oh yeah.
And he had a premonition that I was upstream, and we were right. We didn't know. But I pretended like I was Adam and he was sneaking up on me because he heard that I was making pizza in my cob oven. They didn't show that part, but there's a whole story behind the fight.
That's hilarious.
But I was pretty stoked when they decided to show it. Probably because I actually hit the camera. They're like,
yeah.
Wow. Like, dang, that was a good shot. I don't know if I could do that again.
Did you get to spend any time in Newfoundland before the show? Like, did you land in Corner Brook or no? Did they fly you straight into Labrador?
We just had that 2-week orientation ahead of time. So that was it.
And you were kind of
time to explore
on that camp or whatever, where they train you. Okay.
Yeah.
Just trying to, I'm from Canada, so I was trying to be like, Newfoundland is great. It is. I've been there. It's beautiful.
Yeah, I really wanted to explore. I would love to go back and explore when I actually have time to. And I'd love to go back to my site and bring a tent and some food.
Yeah.
And really explore, like, wow, there's a pond here, or
Yeah. Have the rations or the ability to explore a bit more than going too far from your camp and getting lost. So
Yeah.
speaking of camps, so someone on the website Reddit found out where all the camps were on season 9. We posted an article about it on the website, and they were all pretty close together. So did you ever hear any noises from other contestants, like sawing or like swearing?
No, and I'd like to see that map. That's interesting because when we were all back in, we pulled up a map and each one of us put a dot where our shelters were,
Yeah.
our sites were. And there were big gaps. There's 3 or 4 people close to the ocean, and then there seemed to be a gap, and then Adam and I, and then some other people upstream.
Yeah, I'd
No,
be
there's no
curious. This
way.
person just used like satellite topography and stuff and clips from the show. So who knows whether it's accurate. But I just thought it was interesting that someone went to that much trouble.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I think it's great. I'd really like to look at that map.
I'll send you the article. It has all the information in it.
Yeah, but you couldn't really see each other at all.
No, I always wonder, like, is there ever going to be a season where people like someone's like, that's it, I'm leaving, and like walks and finds another camp?
Yeah, except that we're all carrying GPSs, and if we hit our
right.
geo line, then our GPS beeps at us and tells us, okay, you got to turn around.
Oh, no
like
way.
Hunger Games.
I was going to say, yeah.
Perimeter. But now we're going to send out the angry, growling werewolf dogs. Like,
that is so funny. I never thought about that. They would like limit you to like a region. So that's okay. So I'm never going to get my wish of a battle royale between contestants.
Yeah, no, we definitely had geofences.
That's so okay.
We're restricted to our boundaries.
That makes sense.
And even in a situation where if we were, for example, if I had gotten a bear and I was actively chasing it or hunting it down, I think that's a situation where I could continue even if I go into someone else's territory.
That makes sense.
However, if I lose it and it goes into someone's territory, it's done.
Too bad.
There's some strict guidelines around that. I don't think that's ever happened, but that's why Roland, when he had all that muskox, that whole herd behind him, he didn't hunt them or scare them because it would go into someone else's territory and he wouldn't be able to follow them.
Oh, okay, that makes sense. A lot of that makes sense now. Okay, I was wondering about that. I was like, okay.
Plus, he just didn't want anybody else eating muskox. So.
Exactly. So you said on the show that you wanted to start a survival school. So did you end up doing that? And can you tell me about it? And can I go?
Sure.
Serious about
yeah,
that.
I am. I'm in the process of, but the yurt that I was talking about that I've been living in, it's already down and I'm moving it to the new property. So that's scheduled to be rebuilt in 2 weeks.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And yeah, things are happening. My driveway to get into the land had to be graveled and the culvert put in because there's a seasonal creek. So yeah, it's in process. We're working on the infrastructure. The campground is mostly put in with trails connecting each campsite. And so made good progress on that last week. And I'm hoping to have a soft opening in this fall. So probably like November. I am teaching a drum class in November. And then we'll have the grand opening the beginning of next year. So
That's so exciting.
There's a lot of irons in the fire right now. It's just a matter of getting it all done. And
do you have other teachers like there to teach courses as well? Or are you like doing the whole thing?
Yeah, it's open to having guest instructors come and teach. So I have a whole handful of, not one person is expert at everything. I know how to flint knap, but I'm not that great at it. So if I want to do a flint napping class, I would have an expert come in and teach that class. And so there'll be a lot of variety. And there's going to be some online courses, weekend workshops. We'll do some week-long excursions where we'll actually go out into the wilderness.
Cool.
and eventually, not this year, but next year, there'll be a year-long program where you go out once a week for every season. So spring, summer, fall, and winter.
Oh, wow.
And so that's a whole program where we build from one season to the next. For example, we might do a lot of foraging and making medicines in the spring. We'll collect more food, berries, and do things with summer and the fall. Maybe do some hunting and trapping if it's legal. And in the winter, we'll go out, make a shelter, and eat the food we've been harvesting all year.
That's super cool.
Yeah, like that. And there's a lot more elements to that. I tend to teach more the spiritual side of the primitive skills and nature connection and how to really connect with the land. And you see me doing that out there alone, which was my intention, to see how deep I could go, because you can't share that unless you have that experience yourself. And so that was my personal challenge, to see how deep can I really go. And it was amazing. Like, I felt really informed by the land. For example, I was perplexed by how to build my shelter. And I felt really held by the land. And you could say the ancestors of the land said, this is what you need to do. Dig that hillside is all clay. And it kind of happened all at once. Like, it might be just my intuition, who knows, but it worked.
Yeah, like we've only been industrialized for a couple
centuries. I really want to share that with people to help them connect with the land at that deeper level, and to be able to trust their intuition and just be informed.
That's super interesting. What's it going to be called, your survival schools, so people can look it up?
Yeah, it's Sacred Cedars Wilderness School. Okay. And it's in Sandpoint, Idaho. It's on my website at karieleeknoke.com.
Perfect. I'll include all the links.
Yeah, I have a Facebook page and we're on Instagram. And it's called Sacred Cedars because there's a huge grove of these huge cedar trees on it. And the property is just a lot of cedar trees.
That sounds beautiful.
Yeah, but it has 4 different ecosystems too. So there's a lot of places to explore on the land and having different experiences. That's beautiful. Yeah, I'm pretty excited.
So if someone wanted to learn to live off land, they should attend your training classes.
Sure. Yeah, because it's going to continue all off grid, minimum solar system, rain collection system, everything I've been doing for 20 years. I'm going to continue doing on the land. There's going to be some permaculture going on, and when I actually get to build my house, it's all going to be natural building. So there'll be a timber framing workshop next year, and so a little more things than just wilderness skills.
That's awesome. So do you think a survival class like that would be a good way to start if someone was interested in kind of wilderness living, or are there things they can do if they have just like a typical suburban life that they can do to like get more in tune with that kind of thing?
Yeah, all of the above. I think the primitive skills and wilderness skills, no matter where you live or how you want to live, the primitive skills are skills that our ancestors used. Maybe not the exact same ones, but it really gets you in touch with a primal source of yourself that you may not even know you have, but there's a lineage inside of you, and there's a memory in our DNA, and that really brings up a lot of that. I just like to call it that primal memory that we all have, connection to our ancestry. And I think it's really important to keep that alive, not just the traditions, but within yourself. And it also helps when you're in situations out in the wilderness, like, oh, my lighter's gone. Well, geez, I remember learning how to rub sticks together, And so you have a backup, and you become more resilient. You're more confident within yourself. We would teach these skills to 18-year-olds, young adults at a school I formerly worked at. And it really helped them to become more confident of stepping out into the adult world, because it's like, you get a job, maybe you fail, or you didn't get the job. I hate to say success or fail, but it may feel like, oh, I failed. It's like, well, but I'm okay because I know how to do these self-reliant skills to help me out.
Yeah, you feel like you have even just a backup plan and things like that.
Yeah, you have a backup. It's like, okay, I lost my apartment, but that's okay because I can go camp out over here and still get to work and,
Yeah, it's not absolutely hopeless. And if you do get lost in a survival situation, you have some means of
yeah.
something in your head to help you.
And wilderness skills, so there's a little different. Wilderness skills is different from primitive skills in that you can use technology, right?
Like compasses and things like that.
But it's just, and just knowing how to work in your environment, especially if you want to do wilderness living or living off grid. But to live off the land, those skills are just very valuable to have.
I agree. We're trying to do more kind of eco-friendly stuff, but more things like that in my house. If we have a garden and things like that, it's hard when you live in the middle of thousands of houses surrounding us, but we're trying to take my daughters out camping and stuff now that they're a little older. They're like 4 and 2, and to get more in touch with nature, because I think it's important as well. And some of my favorite parts of my day is when I walk my dog in the woods. So
yeah. And I was just going to say too, and just having that connection with your environment is only going to allow you to be more grounded in yourself and to have that appreciation. And, when people become disconnected, that's where greed comes in. It's all about money. It's all about these things that are outside of ourselves. And I think it's really important to have reciprocity, not just, we live in a culture where we just take and take and take, but we don't give back. And that was another thing I was sharing on the show, is like, you can give back in so many ways, and just singing those songs of gratitude and being grateful and being in your heart instead of in your mind is really empowering. And when you develop a relationship with your environment, now you have the opportunity to give back. And the plants know that. Some people talk to plants. Yes, they are listening.
Oh, my sister talks to her garden all the time.
All the time. But yeah, they appreciate, because it's not so much what you're singing, it's the vibration. They feel that heart vibration that's coming from your heart. And that's really what it's all about.
That's neat. I'm going to start talking to my peppers, be like, bro. No.
Yeah, like, I love you, peppers. I'm going to eat you, but I'm going to love you. What do you need? Some fertilizer? Oh, okay. Sure.
Yes. I have a question that doesn't have anything really to do with alone or wilderness living, but so living off grid, do you get a chance to watch a lot of like movies and TV shows? And if so, do you watch anything post-apocalyptic, and what is your favorite?
Yeah. Yeah, for me to watch a show, I have to stream it. And I don't really have time until winter time.
Yeah.
And even the last couple of winters, I've been, I watch alone, and pretty much that's been the only thing I watched for the last couple of years. There was a movie with Viggo Mortensen in it. I can't remember the name.
The Road?
The Road.
Yeah.
I found that really intriguing.
Yeah, it's a great movie.
Yeah, sad. And I hate to see the world come to that point, but what really struck me, which was different about that movie than all the others, was it was closer to our timeline and seeing how the trees were all falling. And I've seen that here in the last few years we've had with climate change. We're getting more and more massive windstorms. And so these big, huge ponderosa pines, like, this one that's in the background here, these big, huge trees falling over because we get drought in the summer, the root balls shrink. In the wintertime, we had a really hard, frozen, really hard cold, a cold spell. And so when everything thawed out and this big windstorm came, the root balls couldn't hold the trees and they all fell over. This happened here in Sandpoint, like massive amounts of trees fell over. And once in November and then 6 months later in March.
That's awful.
It was really devastating to many houses in our community.
Yeah, for sure.
And so when I saw that, I was like, oh my gosh, this is like what happened in the road. And I could see the connection of like, if we don't change what we're doing, on this planet. That wasn't very far-fetched. It seemed far-fetched in the movie, but when I saw that, like, this is...
Yeah, I worry about my kids and what they're going to grow up with, when they're my age, and what's life going to look like for them.
Right?
That's why I want them to learn these kind of skills,
Yeah, I'll bring them up. And I think next summer we're planning on doing some family camps. So.
Oh, that'd be fun. I would totally. I've got a question about hanging out and stuff. So do contestants on Alone, do you guys like hang out and have like reunions, or do you just kind of like, bye?
Yeah, as soon as we found out who was going, we immediately started a WhatsApp group. And so we're constantly in communication. We know what each other's doing, and we want to get together to do a reunion trip.
That's awesome.
We just haven't decided when and where. And I keep thinking Labrador, we should go back to our sites. That's actually what I'd like to do, is go back to our sites and explore each other's sites. Like just
that would be really cool.
A couple of weeks and just hike from one to the next, or take a boat up and down the river. That'd be the easiest way.
Yeah.
But yeah, really just explore and really enjoy being there. Maybe get there earlier in the season when there's more fish to be caught. That'd be a lot of fun. So yeah, there's talk for sure. But
so you really see them.
We're like family.
Oh yeah.
And even before we went out, it wasn't like we were out there to compete against each other. We were really supportive. We gave each other information. And because when you're out there, you're really just competing with yourself.
That's what I was going to ask, is that it seemed like it was more of a, hey, these people like what I like, we should be friends thing, as opposed to, That's great. That's awesome.
Yeah. They're buds.
Yeah. We talked about the singing before, but so is music a big part of your life then too, or is it just singing just something you do kind of here and there?
Yeah, I like to sing. I've never been a person that's really big with my voice. So I actually forced myself to go to these women's singing circles that we had here in our community, and it's been going on for like 20 years. And so that really helps me to get my voice to open up. So I love to sing, but I know I don't have the best voice.
I thought you said it fine.
I feel tortured and feel bad because here's Tom out there on the show, and he's a wonderful musician, and he wrote an amazing song for the show, and they didn't air it. And we're like, oh, and then I felt bad because I'm out there singing 3 different songs. Like, show Tom's song. Really?
I have a feeling if I was out there, I would sing constantly, because that's like all I do. I work from home and I'm by myself most of the time. I'm just like singing to myself.
Yeah, see, but that's keeping your radiant circuits going. See,
maybe I'm doing it unconsciously. I didn't even know what I was doing.
So, right.
One last question, and that is, what food did you miss the most when you were on Alone?
Yeah, so I ate a lot of fatty food last summer to gain weight.
Yeah.
And I switched to a protein shake, which really helped me to gain weight. But when I was out there, you have these amazing cravings for fatty foods. And I remember I would negotiate with my belly a lot, and I'd have this craving for this. I want a wild bison burger, medium rare with bacon, blue cheese crumbles, and sweet potato fries on the side.
That sounds awesome.
Cheese dressing. I was like, yeah, that sounds great, but not today.
I should do that whenever I have cravings. Say, not today. Today we're going to have tea. Yeah. that must take, honestly, I think that for me would be the hardest part, because I have like no willpower when it comes to food. I'm like, I want a donut. I'm going to go get a donut. Where I think that honestly is it seems like such a strong-willed thing to do, to kind of be like, I have a chance to leave and get the food that I want, but I'm not going to. And I just think that's just so tough.
Yeah. I had a map so that I knew when I did go on the way home, we're going to go to this airport. We're going to go to TGIF to get potato skins. We're going to go here and get that. And I had this food trail of map for my journey home.
That is amazing. And you deserved it.
Yeah,
for sure.
The first airport, I had this big burger and fries, and ate half of it. My stomach didn't really like it. So
Were you like crying as you ate it? Because I probably
we're gonna go back to healthy food.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, those are the only questions. Those are the questions that I had for you. And I just wanted to thank you again so much for talking to me today. I'm still like so giddy about it. It was
great.
so wonderful to watch you on the show, and I learned a lot, and I learned a lot today too. So yeah.
Well, thank you. And thank you for having me on the show today, and reach out anytime.
Yeah, no problem.
To see you up here in North Idaho.
I plan to. I'm writing this down.
Okay.
Awesome. Yeah. So thank you everybody for watching, and you can check out my reviews and recaps of Alone on the website, postapocalypmedia.com. And yeah, check out Karie Lee's Instagram and her website. I'm going to share all of those links in the description as well. So thank you.
Great. And yeah, thank you for having me on the show.